Everybody, we're just a few in number around the table, but we have quite a few online, so we're going to get started. And first of all, I'd like to acknowledge that many Indigenous nations have longstanding relationships, both historic and modern, with the territories upon which we are located today. This area is home to many Indigenous peoples from across Turtle Island. We acknowledge that our watershed forms a part of the treaty and traditional territory of the southeastern Anishinaabe. It is on these ancestral and treaty lands that we live and work. To honor this legacy, we commit to being stewards of the natural environment and undertake to have a relationship of respect with our treaty partners. Okay, so first of all, we're going to have an adoption of the agenda. Jerry. Carol. All in favor? Harry. Okay. Any declarations of pecuniary interest? None noted. Okay, so we're on to 3. I need a motion to approve the minutes of May, please. Jerry? Tracy? Any questions? All in favor? Carried. Good. Okay, no business arising from the minutes. Okay, we have no deputations. And so we're on to presentations and applicable action items. 6.1, Alternative Land Use Services Program. Alice, presentation. Sophie, Monfett, Conservation Program Supervisor, Ontario Federation, OFAH. Yeah. Thank you. Yeah. Okay.
Hello.
There she is.
Yes, am I coming through okay?
We can hear you, or can't see you. There you are.
Oh,
Yes,
okay.
yeah, there you are.
I'm just going to share my screen here. Let's see. And are you getting my full presentation now?
It looks like it.
Okay.
First big page.
The first big page. Wonderful. Okay. So did you want me just to jump right in?
Please.
Okay. Good afternoon, everybody. And it's my pleasure to be here to talk about the ALICE program. As mentioned, I am the supervisor of conservation programs with the Ontario Federation of Anglers and Hunters. And so the ALICE Peterborough program is one of a handful of programs that I oversee as part of our conservation programming within our organization. And Christy and Mark invited me here today to talk a little bit about ALICE and then dive a bit deeper into the ALICE Peterborough community here within Ontario. So it's not moving forward just yet. There we go. Slight delay. So the ALICE National program, it's a charitable organization. And so when I'm talking about ALICE, you'll hear me say ALICE or ALICE Canada, ALICE National, and that is the broader kind of umbrella organization that many or all of the communities fall under. And it's ALICE as a whole is a community developed and farmer delivered program. And it looks to provide support to farmers to create, restore, and enhance the ecosystem services on their land. And it's also to manage and maintain the benefits of those ecosystem services on their land. And it's really just looking at what farmers, the nature that they can provide to society on their marginal, unproductive, or inefficient land. And so their tagline is where agriculture and nature meet. So their vision is to sustain agriculture, wildlife, and natural spaces for communities and for future generations, and to help farmers and ranchers build nature-based solutions on their land to sustain agriculture and biodiversity, again, for the benefit of communities and future generations. So there's a longer history of investing in farmers who produce clean air, clean water, wildlife habitat, and the other ecosystem goods and services on their farms for the benefit of communities and future generations. And I'll go a bit more into a bit more detail at the community level about kind of what those investments look like. So in Canada, we've talked about how it's an agricultural stewardship program. We talked about how it works with farmers and their land and identifying and transforming marginal pieces of their land. But like I said, it's a national program. It's in 6 provinces, 39 communities in total, 10 of which are in Ontario. And those are the 10 that I have included on the screen in front of you. There's a total of 52,645 acres enrolled in the ALICE program as a whole, with 1,761 participants or participating farmers and growing. I think it's been pretty incredible to see how quickly ALICE has grown, and they've really come up with a great model in terms of working with farmers. And again, it's because there's this increasing need to recognize that those ecosystem services that are being produced have great value to our health and to our quality of life. And through ALICE, there's now a mechanism for society to recognize those services and recognize farmers for the fact that they're producing these services through their land. So there's a number of different types of projects, and then of course ecosystem services that are the result of ALICE community projects across Canada. So it could be windbreaks, it could be wetlands, the planting of meadows for pollinators and birds, or some of the modified agriculture like delayed grazing or haying. And again, based on the project, there's a number of ecosystem services produced, whether it's habitat, clean air, clean water, nutrient cycling, for example. And so ALICE allows for the production of these ecosystem services, again, to be part of a farmer's healthy business model. And it's almost like these ecosystem services are a new crop on their land, and that we're recognizing, and ALICE is recognizing, that nature has a value as a public good, and those who produce it should be compensated for the value they create. So for every ALICE community, there is a legal entity, and that legal entity houses that community. And it could be a municipal government, an agricultural group, a conservation authority, in our case, a conservation NGO. And this agency is there to provide a number of important things. So support and clout, accounting and admin services, office space, equipment, the list goes on. Many things of which an agency like the OFH, for example, or even Kawartha Conservation, many of the things that they already have in place to operate their day-to-day business. And the legal entity will sign an MOU, or a Memorandum of Understanding, with ALICE, which will lay out the agreement between the organizations, lay out the roles and responsibilities, as well as the contributions and the commitments that they make in terms of supporting the program delivery for the longer term. So to summarize a little bit of, in terms of what the community provides and then what Alice National or Alice Canada provides. I thought it was nice to kind of compare the two. So the community, so in our case, Alice Peterborough, provides the legal entity, which has been OFAH. They establish a partnership advisory committee, or a PAC, to guide the delivery of the program. They manage the administrative arrangements for the projects, the community engagement and landowner liaison, and communications, project establishment, so ensuring that projects get in the ground, the payments to the participants, to the farmers, those annual payments recognizing their production of ecosystem services. They're coordinating local communications and also looking at opportunities for local donor development and fundraising. Now, I will say this comes with a considerable amount of support from Alice National. So they are constantly developing their program and supporting the communities that are operating across Canada. They're supporting the adoption of new communities in some cases, and they do have a program resource guide that they are feeding and populating with all sorts of resources, whether it's standard operating protocols and documentation, templates for use. If there's something that you need help with, oftentimes you can go into the program resource guide and find it, because all the communities feed into this resource guide. They have an extensive database system that they use and have all communities use to track their projects, acreages, participants, expressions of interests, funding allocations. It's a really fantastic way for them to track what's happening on the ground in their communities. And this comes with a considerable amount of technical support as well. They have monthly database webinars, and you have contact to the team of people who are operating the database and ensuring it stays up to date and is working for everybody. They provide tools, national communications, including website and social media, national branding standards that you can follow for the program. They're doing political engagement and looking for funding and developing and applying for different grants. And these turn into funds that they provide to communities for restoration conservation. And of course, they also look into research and evaluation for the ongoing projects and goals of the program. So I'm going to dive a little bit deeper into Alice Peterborough and the community that the OFAH has been delivering for the past 7 years. So as I mentioned, it began in 2017 with the Ontario Federation of Anglers and Hunters serving as the legal entity. And there are some key program areas. We do oversee the administration, the day-to-day things that pop up, but then I'm going to talk a little bit about funding and farm support, the Alice Peterborough PAC, outreach and communications, and project monitoring and reporting. So in terms of funding and farm support, funding comes through private and public sectors, whether it's program sourced or from Alice National. So within OFAH and on a more local level, we certainly spend time looking at grant opportunities and other funding opportunities, whether it's for projects or the program as a whole. And we would apply to those and, Eco Action, Wildlife Habitat Canada, Ontario Wildlife Foundation. These are just some of the sources that come to mind. We've also had funding from local zones within the OFAH and donations that have been made to the program. But we also participate in an annual exercise where we project funding needs and allocations for Alice National, so that as they receive funding at the national level, they can use the numbers and the allocations that we've shared with them of our anticipated expenditures and distribute their funding across communities participating in Canada. And so we do get a considerable amount of funding from Alice National as well. And there are also our partners on projects, depending on what we're working on at the time. And sometimes these can come with funding. So a few projects that come to mind would be wetland related projects where Alice Peterborough has had the opportunity to work with Ducks Unlimited Canada to establish wetlands, and there has been funding contributions made from both DUC and Alice Peterborough. The funding that comes into Alice on top of kind of program delivery allocations, the rest of the funding is used to support project establishment costs. So it could be paying for contractors, for trees or shrubs, seeds, for example. And then the other funding is for distributing those annual payments, which are typically 5 or 10-year agreements to the farmers participating. And this is a per acre rate based on the local land rates and the degree of input for maintenance for those farmers and those projects. And it's determined by the Program Advisory Committee. And again, I know I've said this a lot, but I'll reiterate it because it's a very important part of the program, but it recognizes the value of the ecosystem services produced and the farmers' maintenance of that project over time. So the Program Advisory Committee ensures that the efforts remain farmer delivered or farmer focused, which is core to the vision of Alice. And each community does form a PAC made up of local farmers and agency representatives. The PAC meets quarterly to review projects, and these projects are the result of expressions of interest submitted to the program throughout the year. And the PAC really does have an important role and provides an important level of agricultural and environmental expertise when it comes time to reviewing and approving projects. And we currently have 6 farmers and 3 agency representatives, and the agency representatives are from Kawartha Conservation and Autonomy Conservation. The Alice Peterborough program, and it's the coordinator who really oversees this, is responsible for outreach and communications and just really building the reputation of the program within the community. And so they are looking for opportunities for community engagement, liaising with landowners, recruiting volunteers and engaging them in possible events like tree plantings, engaging local farmers in program participation so that they know what opportunity is there for them. If they have a piece of land and they have a project idea, they can reach out with the expression of interest and start the process. And then also showcasing projects. So a really great communications and outreach event that has been held over the past few years is a local bus tour where we invite people to come along and see the great work of the program, see the projects that have been delivered at different farms and kind of get a feel for what the program is all about. And I'm not sure if anyone from Kawartha Conservation has made it out on one of these bus tours, but it's been a really great way to showcase the great projects on the ground. And then finally, project monitoring and reporting. So we do report annually, a few times a year, actually, to Alice Canada on the funding and the results of the funding that they've made to the program. And then on top of that as well, the coordinator is responsible for monitoring the projects that have been established over time. And ideally, you would monitor every project every year, but as the program grows, the monitoring has become a bit more cyclical, and we try to get out to farms at least every other year when possible, with the exception of the delayed hay projects. Typically, we're out making sure that the hay has not been cut by July 15th every year in order to inform those annual payments for the projects. And one additional thing I will mention is that Alice National also monitors projects. And so for communities with 30 or more projects on the ground, they will be included in Alice's annual monitoring, where 10% of their projects are audited by a third party. And this is just to ensure that the acreages that are being reported are accurate and it's transparent with its data. And so in Ontario, this audit is conducted by Agricorp annually, and Alice Canada arranges and facilitates the verification. And each community pays a share of the cost, and that's included in your MOU for that given year. And so to sum up, I thought I would just share some of the numbers from Alice Peterborough. We've got 57 participating farmers, 90 projects, and 590 acres enrolled in the program. These projects and acres can be a range of different kinds of projects, from modified agriculture, so delayed hay, reforestation, grasslands, wetlands, and really the project type varies based on not only the expressions of interest, so what the farmer is interested in, but also based on the land, the local geography, and also the funding stream. Sometimes, we have funding available for wetlands versus other projects, and so that might help to prioritize what some of the projects being established in that year will be focused on. So that sums up my presentation on the Alice Peterborough program. I'll turn it back to Kawartha Conservation, and we can take it from there. Thank you.
Thank you, Sophie. So are there any questions? That was a good presentation, Jerry.
Through the chair, is there a membership fee tied to this for a farm or a farm family to get into this program?
Good question.
Sorry, can you repeat that?
I was wondering if there is a membership fee for a farm or a farm family to join into this?
No, there's no membership fee. So in order to kind of enroll in the program, a farmer or an interested participant would submit an expression of interest, and that would start the conversation with the our staff person, and then we would take it from there. So they would sometimes do a site visit, look at the project, the possible project, help and work with the farmer to develop a project proposal. And if that gets approved, they would be given a certain level of funding. The only they do often ask for contributions from the farmer. That can be financial, but it can also be in kind.
Jerry?
Through the chair, the idea of it being across 6 provinces, even the scope of Ontario, all farms aren't considered equal. We're created equal. Are you seeing any big changes between one province and another on the way the program's working out?
So I'm not sure that's something that I can speak to, just given that we're fairly focused on Alice Peterborough. I know that within Ontario, a lot of the communities do talk and they do share experiences with each other, but I don't think I could accurately comment on, scale across Canada. But if you're interested, I could certainly connect with Alice National contacts to see if they have any further insight.
That'd be good. Sure. Harold.
Yes, thank you for that presentation. A quick question back to Jerry's point on the financial aspect of it. I understand that on these projects, then the farmers do receive some compensation for some of these projects?
Yes. So the project proposal will allocate a certain amount of money for project establishment, so just to get the project in the ground. And then on top of that, the farmer will enter into an agreement with the program, typically 5 years. In some cases, it has been 10 years. That will give them a per acre allocation of funding each year of that agreement to maintain the project and recognize the services that are being produced.
Okay, and thank you. And further to that, through you, Madam Chair, if I may, does that still let these lands qualify for a conservation land tax program or tax credit?
That is not something that I know the answer to or would feel confident answering without looking into that a bit more.
So I might be able to jump in on that. If you're getting money for a property, then it, like for the goods and services, then it typically doesn't qualify for the CL-TIP program.
That's what I was thinking might be. Okay, all right, thank you. Yeah.
Jerry? Tracy, or does anybody else have a question? Nope. Okay.
No, I did have a couple actually, but can you guys hear me?
Yep.
Okay, yeah, no, and mine was, based on that contract, what is the time of the project, parameters around that. What are you finding as one of the most popular uptakes? Because you do have like, quite a few different nature-based solutions that you're offering to the farmers. So what seems to be one of your popular projects?
Right now, we've been more involved with wetland creation, but that also might be reflective of the funding, as I mentioned, that is available through Alice National right now. Certainly delayed hay is one that we've got a number of farmers participating in, and then often the planting of trees, so windbreaks, things like that. So it really varies from each year, and some farmers have multiple projects. So they might have enrolled initially with a delayed hay project, but then have continued to communicate with the program and have found other opportunities as well to have projects on their land.
Thank you. And actually, that's the answer I was looking for, is do they have the option to actually have those, more opportunities if they've got this space? So great. No, thank you. It was a great presentation.
My pleasure.
Yeah, any other questions, Jerry?
Through the chair, what kind of legal implications? You said the contracts could range anywhere up to 10 years. So if the farm had to be changing ownership or transferring, how would that impact that individual?
Good question.
Yeah, so the program is meant to be as flexible for the farmers as possible, and so we've had circumstances where there's been a change in ownership, and so basically the farmer leaving would end their contract, but the new property owner, if they're willing to maintain the project, so if they're willing to continue, then we would enter into an agreement with them.
Great. Okay, thank you. I just want to say that the wetland restoration is very heartening. I'm really glad that that's one of the main focuses. So, thank you. No other questions, Tracy? No. Okay. Unfortunately, we've missing one of our members has gone offline, so we don't have quorum. So we're going to just have to go through the agenda and have discussions. And I guess the next meeting we'll have to make the motions. So
the other option that we could do is recess for a bit and see if we get Peter back online.
we could do that. Yeah. You want to make a motion to recess? Or it doesn't matter. We can't actually make a motion.
We don't know at this point. We know that Peter was on at the beginning of the meeting and then dropped off during the presentation. So
Yeah. So I'll just call 5-minute recess. Right.
there's Tracy.
Oh, Tracy?
Just to remind you, I have that timed public meeting today from Hydro One, so I'm not going to be on for the whole meeting, right?
Right, so where's Korea today?
She wasn't able to make it.
Oh, okay,
Okay.
so,
To Tracy, are you going to the afternoon one in Peterborough?
No, I'm in Bethany and I have a meeting with one of the site people.
okay, it's a busy time of year, right? So, and things do pop up, so it probably will be just for discussion, but we'll take a 5-minute break just to see, if we can get
Yep.
a couple more people online.
Is it possible to start the next segment, 7.1?
Sure, I have no problem with that. Yeah, so anyway, I want to thank Sophie. That was a nice, good presentation and we'll see what happens down the line. Thanks.
Thank you, everybody.
Thanks, Sophie.
Take care.
Sure, so we can have the discussion for sure, absolutely. I think it's
Better use of time.
yeah, it's exciting. My question, if I don't, to Mark, is why is the OFAH stepping down as the main group?
From our discussions with OFAH, the reason why they're stepping down is they're looking at their strategic plan and then looking at it's Ontario-wide, and this is a very specific local program. So they're looking at aligning themselves better with their strategic plan to address their Ontario-wide priorities. So that left this program out in the wind a little bit, so to speak.
Yeah, and so can maybe other conservation authorities, could we work with other conservation authorities? Or I guess you need to have one main entity.
Yeah, there is a need for one main entity. I think that they're working with other CAs, certainly as part of the PAC, that's an existing structure that's in play. Whether it goes beyond that, that would have to be worked into an agreement with Alice National and would obviously complicate things a little bit. But we would have to be respectful of the other CA or CAs that would be in the mix, certainly autonomy. So
I think it's a good fit. That's my feeling. Yeah, Errol?
Yeah, no, it's all seems great. I was just wondering, as we were actually mentioning earlier, what sort of increased workload would be on this conservation authority as far as staff time and commitments to this program?
yeah, certainly like what we had recommended was that we come back at a future meeting just to detail a lot of that out. But certainly there would be, we have finite resources. And so within those finite resources, it would be cutting checks to the landowners for those pieces, any equipment supplies that might be needed by the individual vehicle needs. So there would be elements that would be required on that end, paying the person, of course, as well. So a little bit on the administrative side, for sure. Those are probably the easiest ones that come to mind. Other than that, my understanding is that individual really runs the program at that point. So that's my general understanding. As time goes on, I'm sure there would be opportunities where we have qualified staff, which might happen already, that I'm not too sure of. But if there's a site that is looking at being restored or being like, for instance, the wetland development, then we do have some technical staff that could potentially get involved in that. But I don't have any further details on that side of things. So, and maybe Christy can add a bit more.
And this is a fact finding.
Yeah.
We're not going to make a motion today anyway,
No.
but go ahead. Sorry, Chris.
Yeah, sorry, through you, Madam Chair. Obviously, we would need to have a full-time staff person. So it's currently being managed by a full-time staff person coordinator that does all the liaising and works with the PAC and that sort of thing. As Mark said, other than that, it's administrative supports at this point, as far as additional sort of pressures on the organization. We don't have sort of a dollar value, and I've been sort of chatting with Sophie to try and understand what their budget currently looks like. What she's been able to tell me is they've never had a budget request go forward that was rejected by Alice National. And that they heavily sort of support the program. This individual would also be responsible for looking for other additional funding to help support the program as well. And then, of course, I think the biggest pressures on our corporate services team would be the managing of the investment fund. So what happens is when a landowner signs up and they sign their 10-year agreement, Alice provides the 10-year funding at one fell swoop. And we would have to have that sort of sectioned off to make sure that we have those funds available over the next 10 years. So there will be some accounting pressures to make sure that, you know, and trust John and his team to do that, but to make sure that, you know, those funds are separated, but then the interest that's developed from that goes back to support the program as well, so.
So it's not gonna be like a massive workload on staff or anything. It all seems quite manageable.
Yeah, I think it is quite manageable. It doesn't seem to be like a huge, you know, sort of weight on the organization. There is definitely, it is a full-time staff person to run it, but that's supported through the program, so.
And Christy, do you think, you know, down the line that actually it would be beneficial for Kawartha Conservation vis-a-vis funding?
Sure, I mean, if I had a crystal ball, it would be great. My feeling is in watching the program grow over the last 7 years, 6, 7 years that they've been running, it's certainly grown quickly. There is a huge interest in the agricultural community for this program. So they
That's
started
great.
off with sort of a part-time staff, and
Yeah.
now 7 years into it, they have a full-time staff.
Yeah.
So I feel like this is going to give us a really great opportunity to have to build a really strong connection with our agricultural community, which is something we've kind of struggled with over time, right?
But you've done a great job over time, I think.
We have,
You know.
but it's always a struggle to
Yeah.
make sure that we have consistent funding and that we have consistent programming.
And
So I think
How great it would be, you know, to give funding to save a wetland, you know, and that's what we're all about.
That's right.
Jerry,
Through the chair, are we competing for the same funds? Two different entities?
No,
there you go.
yeah, no, they're far more going out to corporations and that sort of thing, looking for donations as opposed to government grants, which is what we typically depend on.
Great. Any other questions? Tracy?
Basically made more of a comment, just saying that, you know, when you look at the stats, you've got 57 participating farmers on, right? But there's way more options and opportunities out there. So, you know, it's definitely a program that would grow and, you know, have that impact locally too. I think it's fantastic.
Yeah. Okay. Well, that was a good chat, and we can't direct you, but you know what to do. So, okay, won't be making a motion there. So let's just go on to staff reports. 7.1 permits issued by designated staff for May.
Through
Matt.
Madam Chair. See, as found on page 13 of the agenda, we issued 32 permits during May. 100% of these were deemed complete with the CALP timelines, and 88% of them met CALP timelines for issuing applications after being deemed complete.
Can you just speak up a little bit?
Of course.
Thank you.
As for provincial guidelines, we completed all reviews for complete applications within the 21-day allotment. And for issued permits, we issued all of them within the 90-day period as well. After the review has been completed. We are seeing, well, actually, but thank you, I guess. Yeah.
Okay. Questions?
Don't think so.
Okay, Tracy, oh, I don't know if she's there. Okay, so let's just move on then. Okay,
I will comment though, this is my favorite report. I look forward every month because I get to go through all the permits, see what's going on.
well, that's good too. And I, you know, and I like that you've put the area too, because sometimes, you know, I've got I'm just learning the northern part of my ward, so it's good to have that information. So, okay, Thank you, Matt. So we're gonna move on to 7.2, permit application 31 Oak Dean Crescent, Little Britain. Matt,
Thank you. Through you again, Madam Chair. As found on page 19 of the board report, an application has been made for a vacant lot of record along the shoreline of Lake Scugog. What is proposed is the construction of a residential dwelling with attached garage, deck, a driveway extension, and a septic system. Through the review process of the design of the site plan, it has undergone several iterations in attempts to meet the Kawartha Conservation's policies. And upon which the proposed development almost meets all these criteria and policies, with the exception of the balance cut fill due to the property's constraints. When the application began, the proposed loss in storage was approximately 90 cubic meters, and through the iterations, it was reduced to 44 cubic meters. Through engineered review, it was determined that further reductions using engineered flood storage was not feasible for the site. There's a significant portion that was in the floodplain, and then there's also a wetland to the northwest of it. So finding the efficiencies was a little difficult for the applicant. It is the opinion of the staff that natural risks associated with this will be minimal, and that they for the proposed development, that is, and that there is no feasible alternative to further reduce the flood placement below the flood elevation. For the next meeting, we will be seeking resolution for this permit for the application of the dwelling with the attached garage, deck, and installation of a new septic system and driveway be approved and permitted.
okay. Just, does anybody have any questions? I kind of, a couple things tweaked when I read that. It was, if there is a big flood, what happens then? Think that it can, have capacity to deal with that?
Through you, Chair, the building itself has been dry flood proofed, so it's not going to experience issues. Also, they have safe access and egress from the site as well. So that's something we check when we go through these processes, because the flood line is it's about 50%, I would say, approximately, of the property towards the lakeside. So the building and structures will be fine. However, what doesn't meet is the loss of storage on the lake itself. So it's about 44 cubic meters, like I said before.
Right.
So,
Okay,
So,
Carol?
yeah, sorry, just right on that point too, Matt, is 44 cubic meters of fill, where's it going?
it's going to bring the whole structure up above that flood line so that.
So it's under the house?
Yes.
Okay, fine.
And some of the driveway as well, I believe.
Okay,
And it's a type of fill, like it's cut and fill, so they take the bad stuff out and put the good stuff in, the good soil in, so the water can permeate
okay,
through.
okay, okay.
Yeah. So I learned that a few years ago. Yeah, there you go. Okay, Tracy, any questions? Nope. Okay. So we're gonna go on to, and Christie's not here, Durham East Cross Forest Property Acquisition. That's a good news story.
If you want, Madam Chair, I
Sure.
can give a little bit of an update
Yeah.
on that. We purchased the property. So it's now in our hands, still is one of those subdivision blocks that was currently under other ownership. So that's a great positive, and thanks to the support for that.
Yeah. Okay, that's good. And so now we're on to 7.4 watershed-based resource management strategy update. Nancy.
Hi, how are you guys today? So today I'm just here to provide an update of our watershed-based resource strategy. Earlier this year, we started this strategy as a requirement under the Ontario Regulation 686/21, mandatory programs and services. The purpose of the strategy is to assist Kawartha Conservation with evolving or enhancing the delivery of our core programs and services to improve efficiency and effectiveness. The last one that we did was in 1982. Currently, we have completed defining our guiding principles and objectives. We've compiled existing studies, conducted internal review of programs to identify the risks and the priority actions. We have also engaged both stakeholders and public through engagement surveys. Our guiding principles for this strategy were developed to ensure they align with existing and overarching plans, strategies, and studies undertaken by Kawartha Conservation. Our guiding principles include that the programs and services undertaken will be at the watershed level. We use an integrated watershed management model focused on science-based and adaptive approaches, and also that watershed management is a shared responsibility, and collaboration and partnership building are essential for all of our program areas. Our established objectives include protect people, property, and infrastructure from natural hazards, effective management of conservation lands and facilities to provide recreation and education, provide data-driven recommendations to advise people of water resource issues, ensure data products and decision-making processes are accessible and available, and ensure ongoing collaboration and information sharing with key federal, provincial, municipal, local stakeholders and First Nations. So we did conduct an internal review of our programs to identify risks and priority actions. It was done by each department. Departments provided input on what types of program support is currently available. We looked at the issues and risks that limit the effectiveness of each program delivery for each department, and we also listed the actions that might be taken to address the issues and mitigate those risks identified. There's more, in one of the attachments, there's more detail about that internal review and what the staff came up with. To gain preliminary understanding of the community needs, staff distributed a survey to key stakeholders asking 3 questions. So the questions included, what are the community group's biggest challenges? What environmental information would you like to be collected? And what are some of the emerging trends that that community was specifically seeing? We received detailed responses from City of Kawartha Lakes Planning and Public Works Departments, Durham Region's Planning Department. We touched base with academia, so we Fleming College responded, as well as OUIT, Fenelon Falls Chamber of Commerce, the Kawartha Home Builders Association, City of Kawartha Lakes Agricultural Development Advisory Committee, and waterfront community. So the summary of those stakeholders can be found in the appendix 2. In addition, we asked some questions to the public. We received 85 responses. The top 6 challenges that the public tended to let us know that they were facing included increased development, water quality, climate change, overuse and crowding, aquatic plants and habitat destruction, and water levels. The information from the public that they wanted to see us collect or be collected included water quality information, floodplain information, and impact studies related to wetlands and development. The public responded with emerging trends that they're seeing. They included the lack of environmental protection of sensitive features, such as wetlands, habitats, and forests. They also expressed concerns regarding fast tracking of approval processes without the appropriate studies in place. And also extreme weather was another hot topic emerging trend that they're facing. We also established a strategic guidance group to assist with project review. Over the course of the summer, we will be completing our draft strategy with having a strategic guidance group review it and provide feedback on that. And we are planning to come back to the board in September to approve, we'll show you the draft strategy, but also approve us to go to a public consultation on the strategy.
Okay. Thank you, Nancy. Just reading through that, I was just wondering how you came up with the groups to reach out to. It was kind of, I was going, oh, that group's missing, or that group's missing, or like I was thinking, you know, in Bob Cajun, environmental action, Bob Cajun. Yeah, so it was just kind of, for me, for my area, I was just going, oh, okay. Or EAC, or how did you come up with that group of people to reach out to, groups to reach out to?
So
I'm
Brett. Bring it back to Brett.
Okay.
First of all, the timelines.
Yeah.
We had.
You don't want to have too many.
A whole lot of time
Yeah.
to develop the strategy. We have a year.
Right.
So we tried to target what we thought the most beneficial and influential stakeholders.
See, I disagree with that.
Okay,
Sorry.
no, that's fair.
Yeah.
Brett, you wanna?
Yeah, great question. There will be lots of opportunity through our kind of more general public engagement 30-day review period. So we will definitely make sure we hit all the key groups out there.
Okay.
Through either direct emails or targeted, advertising, that type of thing. We wanted to make sure, at least at this base level, we hit. We sent invitations all out to our key municipal stakeholders. as well as we kind of did sector-based. So, we wanted to make sure we had agriculture representation, waterfront community, building industry, academia, etc. And right now, the most outstanding one of those kind of key partners that we're kind of working on their timelines is First Nations communities. So we reached out to Mississaugas, Scugog Island First Nation.
That's good.
And we want to make sure we engage them properly and respectfully. And so we're just kind of letting no pressure for that. We've got lots of time for that. So we didn't include those comments as part of this.
Sorry, I just, when reading through it, I just went, oh, they would have loved to have had a comment or two, that's all. So
We can send that organization or that group.
that'd be great,
Absolutely.
because they're really, they're really engaged, and even EAC, right, through the city, so,
Okay,
or
yeah.
maybe, Durham also.
Yeah, we can
Yeah.
get surveys sent out.
Thank you. No, it was a good report. That was the only comment I had. Any questions? Jerry, Tracy? No, okay. So we're gonna move on. Thank you, Brett.
And Jerry, we've tried a couple times just to get a hold of Peter, but
Yeah.
must have had something pop up on his end that he
Yeah,
can't resolve or
yeah,
has taken him away. So
yeah.
so we will at the next board meeting put all these agenda items back on. So it'll be
Yeah, we've talked about them, so it should be a quick sort of turnaround. Yeah, so, okay, so 7.45 interim financial statement, April 30th. John.
Through the chair, we'll have a general discussion about the interim financial statements today. So pleased to bring forward the financial statements as of April 30th. This is our first interim financial statement under the new framework. So we did have a pretty quick pivot. We went from finishing up the audit to trying to get everything to align in all of our databases and behind the scenes stuff to work into the new framework, which went quite well. So we're definitely, I'd say, going through a transitory year with forward to budget apportionment regulations, and it's going pretty smoothly. So I did detail through our kind of operating programs and services in the report, along with our municipal programs and services. So I kind of touched on a few key highlights here. I will start with overall, right now we're looking to be in a positive position for the year. We're trending towards budget. And so through some of the regulation updates, like the Section 28 permit administration compliance, that department's been receiving additional support throughout the year. So there's been a bit of a shift in labor support. Primarily, you'll see that through the actuals, and that labor is ahead of schedule for Matt's department, a bit behind under Nancy's department. Just that we've had the reshift, for example, like the GIS specialist to really support the mapping implications from all these provincial legislation components. We're also expecting legislation changes and amendment packages under the Clean Water Act. So that'll bring an uptick in time for source water protection and the risk management additional work. So right now, we're a bit lagging on time allocations towards there, but we know there is quite a bit. It's just a substantive amount of work coming through on that piece. Through stewardship conservation lands, like the bulk of their heavy work is coming through this field season. So as of right now, everything is anticipated to be towards budget. We're unable to fulfill all the conservation areas assistant roles. So we will be having a reduction in labor there. They were also budgeted to be supported 50% by grant. And then with the road and parking lot maintenance through the freeze thaw cycles, and if you've driven a road, just seeing a lot of pressure on that roadway that's resulted in using that budget for degradation. And then looking at corporate services, interest rates have been of speculation for quite some time now. So I think every year we're expecting the cuts, and Bank of Canada is kind of moving the goal lines. So with that, we did anticipate at least a couple of cuts this year. We've seen one. So at this point, we are going to see, it's positive news, is we're going to see additional interest earned on our account, which will bring us some surplus in corporate services, which will flow through to our reserves of that year, which is a good news story. We don't carry any debt, so we're not negatively impacted on that end. But I just did want to bring that to attention. On the municipal programs and services, one I'll just highlight is the Trent Lakes floodplain mapping project. I believe we went out to public consultation the past few weeks, or Galen was out at Trent Lakes last week. And that project's effectively wrapped up at this point. You'll see in the budget, we are over budget on all the targets, but it's primarily due to this project was a 15-month project. It started last year and was wrapping up March 31st this year. So just a timing of work from things that we were anticipating last November, December that got pushed into the current year. So overall, the project is still within the budget that was allotted over the 2 fiscal years. And then one more, or a couple more I'll highlight through the joint project with the region and City of Kawartha Lakes. There was additional funding available through Conservation Ontario and Trees Canada and the National Greening Program. So we will be incurring additional costs for planting of trees, but that was offset with additional funds. So it allowed us to work towards pristine stewardship goals and getting extra trees in the ground at a cost neutral impact, which is great. And then under our general benefiting projects as well, just highlight under the environmental monitoring strategy. Nancy, we had received updated imagery, which was part of this year's funding. And additionally, we're currently looking at moving a future year's goal to this time with, we were able to seek funding for the new weather station that's been supported by grant up just at the top of our escarpment there. So just looking at a realignment on that project, which is good news. So yeah, overall, we're kind of first year on this new reporting framework, working through definitely having some lessons learned and things we'll integrate into next year as well, just through the overall planning for the budget. At this time, everything is working towards to plan.
Great. Any questions, John? Well, good report. Yeah, I was talking to the CAO earlier about an FCM grant and John and I were in a meeting yesterday for adaptation, climate change adaptation. So just it needs to be in, I think, the middle of August. So
Is that the municipal green?
yeah,
that one.
FCM, yeah.
So we have recent chats on that.
Yeah.
See what might fit.
Yeah, that's great. Okay, thank you, John. Okay, okay, 7.6. Mark Makowski, CAO report.
Yeah, thank you, Madam Chair. I'll run through my report very quickly and just note a couple of items. We've, as you've noticed in the agenda and through our financial reports, that a lot of focus has really been on continuing to adapt to the legislative framework. On the interim financials, it's a whole new format that matches the budget now, which is a lot of work that had to be done to make sure things mesh. And then also on the whole permitting framework. So we've spent a lot of time making sure our mapping is up to date, which is subject of an item a little bit later. And then there's another big piece that has yet to come that realistically these changes this comment you'll see probably repeated right until the end of the year because we're continually adapting and making sure that we're consistent with it. There's still policies that we have, the planning regulation policy that needs to be updated as well. And other tweaks that we do to our budget to make sure things are consistent. So our field season is pretty active, which you'll note from all the items that are in the agenda. So I'll leave those mainly for your information, and if you have any questions, happy to field them. But there is a lot of work that's going on with all of our programs across all the departments. Communications, I'll just highlight, is really interesting when we have a focus campaign. You can see the results. So those are provided in there for some of the work that we've done, the emergency preparedness week in particular. You can see some of the spikes occurring, which is I find really cool and pretty exciting. I'll highlight a couple of elements on the human resource side as well. Rob Stavinga, he's our watershed resource tech. He's been a kind of mainstay for the last almost 17 years. He's retiring today.
No.
Yes, yeah,
Oh my gosh.
so he's been involved in all sorts of aspects of our business, really good at collaborating between our different departments. So it'll be a pretty significant loss for us, but we wish him well on his retirement. So it's pretty exciting for him. I know he's bounced around the office today, so which is great, but it will be a pretty big loss for us. So we're just taking a look at that right now, that position, and making sure it meets our needs for the future. So and in the meantime, we're going to miss him tremendously. So
Yeah.
And we also have Rebecca Pomeroy. She's our conservation areas technician. She'll be leaving us fairly shortly as well. She has a family endeavor that she's going to spend some time on with her family. So that's an exciting venture for them or for the family as a whole. And she's done some great work with us as well. So the other thing I'll mention is we've been out in the community, a couple of seasonal fairs and AGMs as well. So that's always good to be at those events and get some exposure for things that we do well and that support the community, but also to get some information and be able to share that internally and be able to adapt any programs that we have that might need adapting or investigate different opportunities that might present themselves. The international plowing match is coming up and is coming up fairly quickly. So we are working with both the City of Kawartha Lakes. It'll be a joint booth that we have with the city, which is pretty awesome. And we're also going to partner with Ducks Unlimited. And so right now it's in the design stages for that, how the layout's going to look and how are things working out. I know there's a desire to have an experiential kind of look to it. And so like you say, it's in the design phases. It's going to come up in a hurry.
And Conservation Ontario.
With Conservation Ontario and the other CAs in the area as well to profile kind of the work that we do. So it's pretty exciting. It's going to have to come together very quickly. And you know, through the event, there's a couple logistical interesting pieces as well. Like the fall fair is happening immediately before the international plowing match. So there's very little time to set up, which presents a couple logistical challenges as well. So, but I'm sure they'll all be worked out and it'll go off mainly without a hitch. But in the meantime, it's really just getting the boots on the ground, trying to focus in on the work and get it done. So it should be very exciting, but a lot of work that's going to happen over the next several months on that. And the other thing I'll mention is just some monitoring upgrades that we've had. It's tied to the monitoring strategy. And so we've had some real-time gauges go in on the PGMN well. And one of them was a precipitation monitoring. I know even on the weekend we had that weekend, well, in the last couple of days anyway, the sort of intense rainfalls that are really hard to track. And so hopefully with the addition of this gauge, it's a little bit of extra monitoring power in the southern area of our watershed. So and the southern area is one of those areas that we do see a bit of a departure from where we are in Lindsay to south and also to north. So trying to make sure we cover those off and so that's a great addition to being real time as being the results are going right into the surface water monitoring center in Peterborough there. I think it's still in Peterborough. And so that benefits the entire network as a whole too, which is tremendous and great for flood forecasting. And I think that is all I will mention in my CRO.
Great. Harold.
Sorry, Mark, what are the dates of the plowing match again? Do you have those?
Yep. Before the long weekend.
It starts October 1st.
October 1st?
Yeah, and runs through till that Saturday, so October 6th.
Go ahead, John.
October 1st and 5th.
The 5th? Great. Thank you.
Great. So you can do flood forecasting. Is there any forecasting, like weather forecasting? Like this seems to be like a really rainy summer. Do you have any idea through whatever that going forward, what kind of summer we're going to have? Sometimes you can get a kind of ballpark idea of how things are gonna turn out.
Yeah, I know that Environment Canada
Hot.
provides, yeah, so.
Hot.
Yeah,
It should
so,
be hot. It wasn't supposed to be as rainy, I don't think, but they called for it being a hot, like June, July being hot.
Okay,
To be honest, a lot of these storms that we're seeing over the last month were just pop-ups. We weren't expecting them.
yeah,
Like last night, for example, was one.
I know.
It was not on our radar. It was nowhere to be found, and we're just trying to pull together a social media post right now to show how much rain we actually got across our watershed.
Yeah.
And Mariposa got almost 50 millimeters of rain in that short amount of time.
Oh, wow.
And that wasn't even something that
We're expecting.
our sources that we go to were
Yeah.
expecting. So
Yeah.
we are preparing a map right now to show this distribution of where the storm hit yesterday,
Yeah.
but yeah, definitely a lot more rain than expected.
Yeah, just wondered if it was gonna stop. Although my garden's enjoying it, I gotta say.
I feel, based on our most recent Trent Severn, waterway statement, that they're expecting another 25 millimeters of rain. And that, we are currently experiencing above normal water levels in our area.
Yeah,
Just got that today, so.
there you go.
Yeah.
Thank you. Okay. Okay, we're gonna move on, and the correspondence we don't need to deal with anyway because the Ontario government has given a reprieve on that, so water testing is going to be paid for still, so that's great. Okay, so 8.1, Conservation Authorities Act and regulatory changes. Matt?
Thank you, through you, Madam Chair. The report, this report can be found on page 100 of the board agenda. As outlined in the board agenda for May 23rd meeting, the regulation mapping has been updated to reflect Regulation and Conservation Act changes and incorporated updated technical data. Since the changes are significant in nature, we were required to notify stakeholders, municipalities, and public of the proposed changes and any major or any manner of the authority considered advisable. Regarding the notice, we circulated letters to municipalities and stakeholders. As for the public notification, we posted on social media, performed a media release, and held a public open house on June 12th, which had approximately 30 visitors, and the inquiries ranged mostly around why we're making those changes in general. It was very calm and I felt productive. We will be seeking resolution in a future meeting that the updated regulation mapping meeting legislation guidelines and incorporating the updated technical data be adopted for immediate use. Sure.
Right, thank you. Okay. So, gonna go move on to 8.2. Bylaw number 2, hearing guidelines update. I was going trying to read through that. I was going, okay, yeah. Maybe I'll be away when that happens. No, just kidding. I've only been through maybe 3 in all the years I've been around.
Yeah.
Anyway, yeah.
Yeah, they haven't historically happened all the
No.
time. If you want, I can talk about
Sure.
it a little bit, Madam Chair. So we do have hearing bylaw number 2, which we'll take a look at the next board meeting for adoption. The bylaw itself, the structure of it remains the same. It's all the pieces that are applicable are what changed. So for instance, some of the tests have changed with the updated regulation changes. So removal of conservation of land and pollution are 2 big pieces. And then there's additional pieces that were added in, like unstable soil and bedrock, much more explicitly. And also conditions that might affect the health and safety of persons or property. So those are now put into the bylaw because the decisions of a hearing board have to be consistent with those pieces and are only tied to natural hazards. So those are a number of the changes. The other part is that with legislative amendments, there are a few other elements that create a hearing. And so those have been added into the bylaw as well. And so some of those would include stop work order reviews. If an order is put forward on an individual, they have an opportunity to have a hearing on that stop work order in order to affirm it or change it or completely remove it. So those are, that is one element for a new hearing that we didn't have before. The other is extensions of permits that might not be permitted by the board. So those are two different scenarios. So those are now incorporated within the bylaw. And just to summarize, so all the sections that reference the old Conservation Authorities Act and the old reg, they've been removed and replaced, and the new ones are in there, which there were a lot of references, as you'll know from the red underlined text version of the bylaw, which I thought you board might benefit just to see. But the clean version is provided before that, just for hopefully a sense of clarity on what it would look like. The hearing appeal mechanisms that were added into the bylaw and support material in the back as well. So for any of the chair's remarks or for the decision letters that come out of those pieces, there's a framework for being able to follow. And those are really the main changes to the bylaw. The overall structure of how things happen remains the same.
Yeah, it would be nice to just get a clean copy of that just for.
So the clean copy
reference.
is
No,
provided.
but just in paper, so.
Okay.
Of that. So, but maybe I won't need it, I hope. Okay, so, so we're gonna go on to, 8 point, oh, we did that, okay, corporate services. Is that 8.3 we're at? Yes, John.
Madam Chair, today we're just bringing an update on our corporate website. So just for some background, our website launched in April 2020. It's entirely new developed website. And with that, we brought about some new features such as our online permitting applications, calendar events, a whole rework compared to our prior system. It was approximately about $52,000 in $2020. So in early 2024, GHD, who is the parent company that we had completed our website with back in 2020, they informed all existing clients that their back-end system known as iCreate will be getting phased out at an undetermined date in the near future, and they'll be moving to a new content management system known as GovStack. So any new websites they've been developing lately have been following this new system. So with that, and I'll say we're not in a unique situation. Almost all of our partner municipalities are in the same boat right now as well, as well as all municipalities across Ontario, as GHD is the preferred vendor. So with that, kind of the implications here is there's a specific date of when they're looking to move over. They're suggesting it'll be happening sometime soon, so I'm anticipating within the next probably 12 to 18 months would be the end of support. So currently the old system iCreate is still being supported, but we're just looking to try and get ahead of this. So with the new backend system, we just want to ensure that there's a good transition over, and just again, with our finite resources that we can adequately plan for moving over our website migration. Just touch on, we've definitely had really good success with the website since 2020. I was just looking this up before the meeting, but we've had over $816,000 of transaction occur through the site, and we've never had an online platform before, so it's been really beneficial. It's also helped reduce foot traffic into the building, a lot of convenience for the public and stakeholders, and we average about 100,000 visitors per year through the site. So basically at this time, we're faced with two options with the migration. Option one is we look at the migration with GovStack, our current provider, and we've had a couple of discussions, preliminary discussions, and they're estimating about a $20,000 capital cost to move over to the new system. Well, I definitely acknowledge it's a forced migration on one hand. There's definitely benefits with a new system. It's more up to date. It allows us to do a lot more things in-house. So it would reduce the need to go say to GHD and say, hey, can you make up this update, or we want to redesign this front page, landing, scroll wheels, etc. So there's some good opportunity there. And the other option is that we go through an RFP process. So with the RFP process, we're estimating probably around the $50,000 to $70,000 mark to obtain a new website, new vendor, and really in the sphere, there's not too many competitors is the other thing we're seeing as well. With that would come with quite a bit of staff commitment and time, preparation of the RFP, going out to tender, seeing through the awarding and selection for the vendor, contract negotiation, and then migration, and then also trying to work with the transition piece there and ensuring we're not missing any gaps. So kind of our financial component, we did raise general benefiting levy when this website was completed, and we were able to obtain a grant that was able to support $10,000 of the website cost. And we also were doing, which we've highlighted before, is API connections basically between our information management system, so internal permitting system, and the website, so the two systems are talking. We saw efficiencies when we were having CLOCA and other conservation authority develop that. So we do have approximately $44,000 in deferred funds. So we do have some cash on hand to move forward with either of the options. So with the cost of the migration of being approximately $20,000, we are able to absorb that with some existing funds we have in place, which is great news. So the reason I bring this to the board is one is for policy. We don't necessarily have a specific piece in our purchasing policy for like group buys, for example, or for example, we're part of vendors of record with the Ontario government that pre-vets vendors. So GHD is also part of that vendor group that they're awarded through ministry for vendors. So yeah, I just wanted to bring that to the board's attention, and we do allow for single source procurement where there's documented evidence that the extension or reinstatement of an existing contract would prove beneficial. And in this case, I'm having seen that just on the staff time and the cost to go up to an RFP. So yeah, just bring that forward for the board's information at this point, so we can just get a grasp and have some discussions.
So any questions? I have just a quick question. Where is the grant coming from for the 10,000?
We had used the grant when we developed the website, so that's how we have some of that excess funds, the $44,000 remaining.
Okay,
That attribute to that, so we
Okay.
have some of those funds, yeah.
okay, great. Okay, Jerry?
To the chair, so this forced migration, and I know you don't have any crystal ball, and I know there's a lot of moving parts. How stable does this new format or whatever you want to term it as look?
Yep, it looks very stable. One of our conservation authorities, I think it's Ottawa, is already on the new platform because they did their website update. I think it was last year or this year. Yeah, so all the new websites have been going to that. I think it's Clarington libraries are already on the new platform. So yeah, we've gone through a whole demonstration with them as well. So it looks pretty steady.
Great. Well, thank you. Well, yeah, we'll go through that quick in the next meeting.
Yes.
Okay. So, any new business? New? Any updates from you guys?
No, I think all's well. And
Oh, there you go. Any holidays coming?
Monday.
Monday, yes, we have Canada's.
Yeah, besides Monday.
This year, we have a great parade in the
Oh,
morning.
just gone so fast, eh?
Yeah.
June has gone like, whoa, yeah, so. Jerry, you have anything to share?
The chair, I would just say that we're gonna do a Canada Day celebration in Cavan. Geared more to little kids, 12 to 5 bracket, but hoping it's gonna turn out well. And I listening the other day, and I guess Peterborough City is struggling to get a Canada Day parade of any size, but
Oh, you're kidding?
yeah, the number of floats registered was way less than they expected, but
Oh,
city council decided it's Canada Day, we're gonna do it anyway, so I thought that was somewhat positive.
well, come on over to Bob Cage and we always have a great Canada Day parade.
Good.
So, okay, well. That's it. We don't have any resolutions. Thank you, everybody, and we'll see you next month. And I'd like to scoot downstairs and wish Rob a
Mhm.
happy and fun retirement.
Yes,
Is
they're
it
done. They are done.
Okay, great.
He's in.
Great.
Been working hard this last week.
Did you?
That weather station in. So he is
Hey.
and logging.
He'd be a great person to sit on the foundation.
Possibly, I believe he's planning on traveling.
Yeah,
So he might be hard to,
you know,
but you never know. It's all, we could ask.
I'm gonna ask.
All right.
Yeah, there's birding events and stuff like that too. It's like, wow.
Oh, no.